Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 156 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it's me, Karak with ACG.
And I am Skullsy from Skullsy TV. I cover Bethesda news.
Awesome. Welcome, Skullsy. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. It is awesome to be here.
Pleasure just having you on. We've been talking for the past week and a half, 2 weeks now. And it's like, man, why didn't we meet sooner? It's great stuff. So, for those who don't know, Skullsy is another upcoming Bethesda YouTuber. I'm a big fan of his stuff. Please check him out. Link to his channel will be in the description down below. Along with the Patreon, you flick $1 our way. You get this podcast early on Fridays instead of on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If that's not your flow, you can still listen on the go. I didn't mean to rhyme that. Because iTunes, Google Play links are in the description down below. And I feel like we're going to have a lot of new listeners this week because there's been a lot of Bethesda hype, a lot of Bethesda teasing. So if you're returning after a long MrMattyPlays and Karak of ACG hiatus, welcome back. We hope you are here for the long run. And obviously this show is going to be all about Bethesda because they owned this week, in my opinion. So let's get this started. We got to go on with Rage 2, or is it Rage 2? This is one of those things it's hard to figure out where to start with because it's developed so much and there's been so much speculation, so much is added onto this. We'll go all the way back to the beginning. There was a leak on Walmart Canada. 10 plus games. Splinter Cell. There was Forza Horizon 5 somehow. Dragon Quest on the Xbox. There was Borderlands 3. And also, amongst many other games, Rage 2. So, surprisingly, out of everything listed there, the one that demanded the most attention, I personally know, is not only within my own community, but gamers in general, was Rage 2. People are like, that's a weird one to see. I didn't expect that. Especially since myself and many others are thinking Doom 2. So this leak happens. We're going to cover it. We're going to talk about that. Did any other games out there stick out to you guys when you looked at the initial listing? Karak, I know you were hyped for Splinter Cell.
Yeah, I was hyped for Splinter Cell. Like I had said in the tweet, though, or the message to you, I was a little weirded out by the Horizon 5 mistake. Mm-hmm. That was like odd almost instantly, but doesn't necessarily mean anything. Splinter Cell, I'm absolutely for. Like I think it's time to return to that as well. But I'm one of the few people who actually sort of liked a lot of elements of Rage too. So
yeah,
I was sort of excited to see it because I mean it wasn't the most amazing game in the world, but there's a lot of things I actually liked about it.
Same.
So I was sort of excited for that.
Skullsy, you ever play Rage?
I did. I actually liked Rage. I didn't finish it, but I did enjoy. It was at the time it was one of the best mixes of first-person shooter and light RPG elements. And wasn't it Rage that had the different texturization engine to where the whole entire
mega texture?
game?
Yeah.
Yes, I found that very, very interesting, and I'd like to see more of that used in the future. Just to see, it's a different type of game texturization engine. It'd just be different to see what people can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I agree. Splinter Cell definitely stood out to me. But that Forza Horizons thing was like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
I don't know if it disproved the whole thing or what, but it stood out there. And I wish they would have just left that off almost.
It's something with Bethesda. I always say no leak is ever easy. Like, the only easy one I've ever seen was The Evil Within 2. Psycho Break 2 job listing. It was so obvious, but outside of that, it's never easy with Bethesda. There's always like that X factor, that thing that sticks out, and you go, yeah, I don't know if this is real or not. Anyway, so we see this leak. We are allowed to have our respective opinions on it. We develop them. But then Bethesda throws a monkey wrench into that all. Instead of, we're going to keep quiet on this, oddly enough, they comment on it. In fact, the whole Rage account got completely wiped clean, no tweets, and their first tweet was acknowledging this leak. They changed it to their logo, their banner, and it said that the key art was wrong, that the font was wrong, and it had an anarchy symbol, and all of this was in pink. Some people thought, did the Rage account get hacked? What's going on here? And that very well could have been a possibility. Especially because like the job on the picture itself was like different text. It just looked so unprofessional. But it was like, whoa, they're acknowledging a leak, and it's Bethesda out of all people doing this. They're very closed down, reserved, very opposite direction they took on this. Then Bethesda starts acknowledging it. Bethesda's Twitter account says Doom, or says Dude, not Doom. I'm thinking about Doom. And then Pete Hines said this is why we can't have nice things. So they're playing along with this, obviously, trying to drum up, like, what's going on here? And also throwing the suggestion out there, like, we know this is here. We know this is real. This is happening. Because then the Bethesda account itself takes the reins for the teasing, starts chucking out images. Images of Big Ben with a pink smear, the time lands on 514. An image of a rocket going in the air, pink smoke, but there's a 514 on that. An image of Shibuya Crossing. Very odd. Nothing was in that picture. And then we see two different ones of what looks to be the enemies we fight in Rage pretty often. They are amongst the same gang because we can see they both have goons tattoos on their bodies. And also the enemies in the Rage game were heavily tattooed and armored up, much like we saw in those photos. So we'll stop there for a second. The photos themselves, what did you guys take away from them? Is it definitely Rage 2? Is there something else there? Multiple games teased by Bethesda? Whoever would like to go first.
First, before people ask, I'm wearing the glasses because I'm in front of lights. I know everybody gets all pissed off whenever I wear sunglasses, but I have bad eyes.
Anyone on our channel complain about it yet?
They don't. I just assumed you were deleting them because at some point you're just like, okay, we get it. People are pissed. He's what a douche for wearing those inside. What does he think? He's Bono? I personally... some people brought up the fact that if you look at them, it sort of does indicate three themes, which I was surprised because I didn't see these. I should have. But it was like I said, time and then space and then travel, which I was like, oh, shit, Starfield, even though it's pink and all that shit. So that really interested me. I hope it's more than one, but there's a reason why. Because despite me somewhat liking Rage, I also know, and I just found this out this morning to my chagrin, a number of people don't give a fuck. A large number of people are not fans of that game. And so it's like, I hope there's another one as well. If this is all much ado about just Rage, a shooter in a post-apocalyptic world, which you got your Metro series that's done that to a incredibly high degree, that does actually make me a little nervous. So I'm hoping there's two, and a Starfield game and Rage, and that maybe they're overlapping in some way. But I think you just did a reverse search, and looks like that might not be true, and it might all be related to Rage. So I don't know.
Yeah,
it's very confusing.
What Karak's referring to is, I didn't know about this until he brought it up to me, but if you right-click the image on the Bethesda Twitter account and click Google search this image, it'll kind of look up what's in the image. So I think the rocket was like Space and Technology, Rocket 6 or something along those lines. And then three of them came up, I think, what was it? Not the rocket. It was, I think, Shibuya Crossing, and then the two people all came up with Rage. So it's looking like with the reverse search that this is more likely Rage. What do you think about all these pictures, though, Skolzy?
There's a couple things that come to mind. First of all, with the people, that definitely confirms Rage. Whether Bethesda's trolling us with that, based on the Canadian Walmart leak, or if truly is Rage, at this point I think it's Rage. But the main thing that comes to mind with that is, one, all this hype and stuff about Rage. What's Bethesda Game Studios doing? We're going to have a huge announcement with Rage, but it seems like people are now distracted from the secret Bethesda Game Studios project, except people are thinking Starfield from that rocket. But if Rage 2 is being announced or something to do with Rage, that is a confirmed way to at least limit what Bethesda Game Studios would be working on, because I don't think it'll be anything Fallout related if something Rage related is coming out. I don't think Bethesda would want two post-apocalyptic things in one showing, so either Starfield is legit, or it's Elder Scrolls, or it's something we have no idea about.
And speaking of Starfield, we'll tailor off for a second to talk about how we can narrow it down more. I noticed in a video of yours, Skolzy, that Pete Hines actually acknowledged in a Twitch stream of Elder Scrolls Legends, to some extent, the existence of Starfield. Someone said, isn't like Starfield your favorite game? Something along those lines, right? And he was like, congrats, you can read trademark listings. You don't know what that game is, who's working on it, or what it's about.
Yes. I actually was really excited when I heard that, because I think that might be one of the only actual confirmations from Bethesda that the Starfield trademark is a project. I mean, obviously it's a thing because it's trademarked, but an ongoing active project. Yeah, yeah. And boy, did I get a lot of hate for that video. People are like, "Oh, this doesn't confirm anything." I'm like, "It kind of does a little bit."
I think it was an acknowledgement. It was like him saying it's not. You don't know what that game is, right? When he said that, I was like, "All right." Like we saw in the trademark listing, it's a game, but also those trademark listings could be there for 10 years down the line for for a long-term plan. I think if they want to get to it and have their property protected in advance. So hearing him say, like, you don't know what that game is, almost acknowledges it's a current thing, from my opinion.
And they don't talk about, Bethesda doesn't talk about anything until it's getting close to some sort of time period for them to start marketing it, as we all know. And then one other thing that I want to mention real quick in that video, and I'd like to hear your opinion on, everyone's talking about the Starfield thing, but Giant Monster News is another mysterious trademark that keeps getting renewed. And no one really talks about Giant Monster News.
That's actually one I personally haven't heard of. You
really?
Have to inform me on this.
Yes, actually, in that towards the end of that video, I touch on it briefly. I only mentioned it because I did a whole video about this, but pretty much since the Starfield trademark was discovered, there is another trademark, and it has the same exact classification as Starfield. It's owned by ZeniMax. The first few lines say mobile games, just like the Starfield one, but the name of this, it's Giant Monster News is the name of the trademark. Very strange, and the only difference between Giant Monster News and Starfield is that there are leaks about Starfield, but not Giant Monster News.
Do you think... Okay, so what I'm thinking, if you ask me, Starfield is the big game, Giant Monster News is some small spin-off mobile thing. That's what I'm generally taking away from it, at least first impressions. I haven't looked at this at all, but I don't imagine a game being called Giant Monster News. That sounds more like a smaller scaled thing. But I'd also want to check, for example, does Bethesda have Galaxy News Radio trademarked? You know, because like, can you trademark an in-game radio station? Do they have the Diamond City Radio trademark? It's like, that's what I'd want to look up, because I feel like there'd be a crossover and you could see like, okay, this is something just in the game, because maybe this Giant Monster News is just something, we'll say hypothetically, in Starfield. Or is it something on its own rights, a mobile game? You know, I don't know what the fuck a mobile game called Giant Monster News would be, but you know, it could be something like that, or it could have nothing to do with it at all. But Giant Monster, just, I feel like in space, multiple races, monsters could be normal. You know, like these, you know, like aliens, creepy looking things, like in a Star Wars movie or something like that. Where maybe a monster hosts a radio show or a news show. That would actually be an interesting concept. I don't know. I'm spitballing right now, to tell you the truth, because I had no idea about this. But that's definitely, I'm surprised no one's talking about that. I wonder if it's because that could be a surprise. And, you know, speaking of that, E3 itself, you know, Bethesda, or not Bethesda, Pete Hines actually, he said that this is going to be their longest conference yet, or at least he thinks it will be. He's not sure, but it's packed. And he said he's very excited for it. This is following comments a couple weeks ago about how they have lots of new projects, lots of new games, and there's going to be big reveals at this E3. So, like, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not saying this for the sake of hype, but I look at E3 15, 16, 17. And all I've ever seen Pete Hines express then, aside from 15, I feel, because it was their first one, was nerves. And I think even in 15 there were nerves. I always saw like him say like, yeah, it's nervous. Or he'd say like, I hope I don't stutter out there. Or he'd say something along those lines, almost in jest. This is like the first time I feel, and I'm going off of memory, so someone can correct me, that I've seen Pete Hines go like, yo, it's packed. We have a lot of shit. I think people are going to be happy. Like, it's a different approach to their E3. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone agree?
I agree, but I think that it also might just indicate the fact that we were also disappointed with the last one. So I think that I don't think they're that dumb to ignore the last one. I think you've even said that there's been times where they've admitted, yeah, it was lackluster. So and that doesn't mean they're not bringing stuff. What I'm saying is there's a very good chance they are, because of that. And because of, you want to make sure you show your good stuff. Maybe you were going to announce something early, but you're like, you know what, E3 is the best time to do this, what have you. But I think that confidence is great and everything. I think what really happens is that when you dive into things like the patents and you dive into that kind of stuff, the way those are done, it doesn't really matter what the name is. It could mean it's usually not that connected even to what the end result's going to be. That's one thing. So it's like we never quite know what they're talking about. But also, when I sit back, and you know me, because I stated this prior to I think in the last podcast I stated this, is like their high level of response doesn't surprise me to Twitters and stuff, to just put another side onto the entire topic for a second, because I feel that Bethesda has, in a weird way, worked themselves into a corner with their high level of response to everything. So if they don't respond, if they don't tweet, if they don't joke, people think that means they're for sure doing something. And then you build up a negativity if they don't announce something. And if they do respond, then we're all reverse image clicking and like looking at what their stuff is.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I feel like Bethesda does have a very unique community. It's why I love it. I love the deep searching, and the community makes jokes on how deep we search. That's why I make speculation jokes all the time. But I feel like that's with any game company that has like a strong following. I don't think anyone's has that type of Bethesda fandom that's like, let's reverse search these images, let's look for hidden things in the.
Well, sorry, I was talking about the tweet. Those guys, okay. Those guys are nothing like any other PR guys. I mean, they blather all the time, so it's hard to know because they're just always blathering. It's like, pizza smart ass here, then he's this here, and we were joking because like he said something, and then the next day he's like, I don't remember what I said. Yeah, you're like, okay.
And
so
he kind of did it again when you really look hard at it.
He kind of did, exactly.
Like, it's our longest showcase. I think it's like.
That's exactly what I was going to return around. Is if you actually read that, it's like it's our longest, maybe, perhaps, and you're all, what?
Yeah.
Like you said, they're not easy, right?
No, he said something.
It's a good point. They're not easy.
Real quick, he mentioned in a tweet previously, a few days before that, someone was just asking him, is the E3 conference going to be long enough for friends and snacks, or should I just watch it quickly? And he replied back, friends and snacks. So he said a few times, it seems, that it's going to be a long, big conference for him.
I mean, see, now I'm digging back, because there was this one tweet that I never talked about because I just thought they were being facetious, and I think someone said, like, how long will this conference be to Bethesda? And they're like, twice the fun or something, and it had like a spearmint, like, stick of gum or something like that. And everyone's like, yo, Matty, the show's gonna be twice as long. I'm like, guys, I think they're just kind of kidding around saying their show's gonna be fun. They're trying to just pump them up without saying it. But then you look at what Pete Hines said about it being their longest, maybe. And it's like that previous tweet makes a little more sense now. What I was gonna go on to is we got all these pictures, and sure, we could draw them to game or multiple games. But the other thing, and we were talking about this before the show, is themes. Some people believe because there were 3 pictures in pink and then 2 that actually indefinitely had to do with Rage, that maybe the 3 in pink were some type of theme. And so the themes were Big Ben, which is time. Then we had the rocket, space. And then, Karak, I think you hit the nail on the head with the travel, the passing almost, with the Shibuya Crossing photo. So let's say these are the themes. What game would it be for? The only thing I could think of is Starfield, but I feel like we might be taking a bit too close of a look at it, if I'm honest.
Also, I think maybe we're, if you do crossing and not traffic or not travel, and you actually take the word of the place, crossing, you could have you could have a weird game where it involves like time and space being broken. They did Prey, which had some weird stuff. Like, Starfield doesn't necessarily have to be what I always want it to be, which is Firefly in space.
Yeah.
Well, Firefly was already in space, but you know what I mean. Firefly, Fallout 4, all in space. It doesn't necessarily even need to be that. And again, those names are fucked up because they'll say it's one thing. The name is just there as a, this is what we were thinking about at the time. This is what we called it. So it's like, it would be awesome if they did something. I want Starfield and I want what I want, nothing almost ever works out that way. But it would be really cool if we got a game that was like, I mean, some kind of space travel with like, you know, weird events where time is crossing over the top of each other, RPG where like you spend half your time in medieval, then suddenly you're in the future, then you're in post-apocalypse. Like, and your characters carry over weird I mean, there could be, they're the one company, despite me disliking a number of elements to whatever games they are, that I still like their games overall usually. And that they can probably pull that off, or they could pull it off. They could pull off something where they're like, you know what, we don't want to do Elder Scrolls because that's fantasy. We don't want to do just futuristic because there's Mass Effect. We don't want to do post-apocalyptic because there's Fallout. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this one that, and the idea of like traveling back and forth. I mean, there could be some crazy shit. Imagine like traveling from the past to the future and the settlement you built, a town, or again, don't want to tell anybody that I'm saying this is happening because that's a big jump in technology, but it would still be really fucking cool. I would die to see that. That would be awesome.
As we're recording this show, it's 5:08. Bethesda has made it a thing to post at 5:14 when it comes to this teaser, so I'm sure during this show we might get a little bit more info to talk about, but for now, I'd say hypothetically speaking, let's go with what it seems to be at least, which is Rage 2. All of us have played Rage, so I'd like to hear what you guys would like to see if there is a sequel to this game from 2010. Whoever would like to go first.
Go ahead, Skulls.
Well, this is going to be kind of based off just my analyzation of that spaceship picture. If the spaceship picture is anything related to Rage 2, which it might not be, one would question how would it fit into the Rage universe, because Rage happened after the asteroid already hit Earth. So I would think maybe something prequel, and that could tie into why you see these Rage characters amongst people with cell phones and who look like they're living a normal life. Okay. Maybe it could be shortly after the bomb or after the asteroid fell. I wanted to say bombs. Damn it, Fallout.
It's very similar to Fallout when I was revising it. Outside of the asteroids, it's like they built arcs. I'm like, shelters?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
okay.
Right.
And the same thing, like when he walks out of the arc and he like puts his hand up in the sun, he's like, oh, it's so bright. I'm like, Fallout 4 intro. That's very similar.
Oh, dude, there were so many. I mean, there's a number of themes that are identical on those two games.
Yeah.
When you look at them.
It's scary.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I was thinking, that it at least says that we probably won't get anything Fallout related if it's Rage related. But yeah, I'd like to see, if it's not a Rage prequel, just a more modern version of Rage, because I did enjoy the game, I did enjoy the setting. So just to see it more modernized, and maybe that mass texturization that we were talking about earlier.
Mass textures.
Yeah, seeing that again, except better. I'd just love to see that. So no matter what it is Rage related, I'd like to revisit the Rage franchise, and I'd like to see it have another chance, because I think it deserves it, despite what people say about it.
Yes, I mean, I agree. I really enjoyed the first Rage. I've said it in multiple videos. Even before all this teases, I was like, it's got some really fun gadgets, like the boomerang, where if you throw it, it hits their chest, it gets stuck, but if you hit them in the head, it cuts right through, and it comes back to you. It's stuff like that, throwing down a turret. Really satisfying gunplay, almost creepy elements when you get attacked by those mutated-looking creatures. I forgot what they were called.
Yeah.
The RC car. It's just a fun game. The story is pretty aimless and it has an awful ending, which is why I'm like, how are they doing a sequel? But you could be onto something with a prequel. But yeah, it's such a fun time, and I feel like id, if they did anything right with Doom, they made it fun as fuck. And so if they just take that fun factor and throw it into Rage again, I'd really like to see what they do. But that's if id is making it. I'm personally under the impression, I don't see why id in their right mind would go, all right, Doom was really successful, let's go back to Rage from like 8 years ago. That just doesn't make sense to me. Business-wise, I feel like it would make sense to make a Doom 2, which is why I think Rage 2 is happening. I just think it's under a different company.
Well, Matty, I guess, and I agree with you, the one thing that keeps being argued to me, correctly by the way, is that Prey returned and it didn't really set the world on fire. So the original
can't take a chance.
So they made, yeah. And also, I do want to say, I don't know about what you guys think about this, but one thing that doesn't confuse me or worry me, but it makes me think about the same thing Skulls was saying. It's like, are we going to see, would it be Fallout at all if it was a Rage? How much overlap is there? Rage, Fallout, those aren't the only post-apocalyptic. You also have, again, the Metro, but then you have a game that only lately has really caught on huge, and a lot of it's because of Game Pass and stuff like that, but Mad Max. So Mad Max is like, there's a resurgence, it's selling well, and they're like, now we're super happy with the sales. That's also post-apocalyptic.
Helix is actually one I know a little bit about.
Helix I really adored, even though it had issues. That fucking game, it out Fallout's Fallout in multiple different elements.
Borderlands 3 is another post-apocalyptic series that's probably
there's another one that was mentioned. Yeah, so that's one reason why I think if we get anything that does have any Fallout elements, it may be like time travel thing, or it may be where it's not the main focus. If it is the main focus, then it might be like a Doom, where it's not even really hub based, but it's more of a Doom shooter. And I know this sounds bad, but I sort of like Doom for a very specific reason. The demons and the weird powers they have. I'm not 100% sure if they just grabbed Doom and jumped it into Rage and post-apocalyptic, if I would be as into it. Maybe that's just me. But
see, because I think, if anything, in retrospect, what Doom could be missing, and this might be because I love Ratchet and Clank, so I love my weapons and my gadgets, not just my weapons. Where Doom had awesome weapons, Rage has awesome gadgets. I'd love to see them say, like, okay, we got the cool post-apocalyptic gadgets, and we have the fast running gun. Maybe not as fast, because I don't think it would make sense in Doom. Combine those elements and see what happens. Especially because Rage had car combat, and Mad Max had car combat. Mad Max did car combat in an excellent fashion. Yeah. So it's like, it seems as if Rage would have a lot to balance and a lot to compete with to stand out. Not that I don't think Bethesda wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
But it's about the theme. That's the biggest question. I think if people saw for sure this is post-apocalyptic, we know, okay, this is definitely Rage. But we haven't seen anything that looks like, the world's over. It's all, we've seen life, if anything. And that's why I think Skullsy's onto something about maybe it being a prequel before the asteroids hit, and then what exactly are they doing during this period in time? Because my thing was like, are we even seeing, or not are the people in the trailer actually even seeing those Rage characters? Because it looked like they just didn't blend in. They looked CGI. It didn't look like a natural fit where I was like, are they actually there, or is this trailer going to be like, oh, plot twist, it's actually something else? I don't think so, but it's just a possibility. Bethesda's doing a good job, and I wonder, did they have this planned? Did they know the Walmart leak was coming? Like, what
I don't think they did.
It's like, what did they do? Because this, clearly they're showing pieces of a trailer. So, I had to have had that in production for at least some time. It's like, what are they exactly doing?
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I don't think there's a company big enough to dictate to Walmart to make a mistake publicly. So I think it's most likely they were working on stuff, and then you get your shit shown. Microsoft's had issues with this with particular leakers where they're prepared ahead of time, and when a leaker does happen, they're in some way prepared for what to say. And also you have PR people who they get paid for this. Like, oh shit, our data got out. What do we do? Well, let's roll with it, what have you. So I really haven't seen, except for the trailer bits, I haven't seen anything that's been spectacular. Like you said, Photoshop a little bit, pink Photoshop splash. So it really hasn't been anything that you or I couldn't do if we were a little more skilled on Photoshop, except for, like you said, where it looks like trailer bits are happening. But we're near E3 anyway, so it certainly does look like it. Also, is there this strange chance that, Rage is Starfield? They're like, and we're getting them separated and thinking that they're different things, and it's like, it's not going to turn out to be the same thing. Was Starfield Rage in the future that they had planned? And you never quite know.
A lot of people have been wondering, is Starfield and Rage one in the same? Is this the
sort of one in the same?
Yeah.
And just for an update, although after people see this show, as we're recording, it's 5/17, and Bethesda hasn't posted anything. The only move they have made, which we talked about this before the show, but now it's past 5/14, I think it holds a little more significance, is that they pinned, out of all tweets, the rocket ship. one. I don't know if this one's going to hold any significance, or maybe only thing I could really think of, if I'm looking deep into it, is multiple photos, and then one of them's like the real teaser. Like, this is what we're actually teasing.
Yeah, true.
So, I don't know, but I'm personally excited for the idea of a Rage 2. I've always enjoyed that universe. I thought it had fun mini games too, like the knife in the hands and the I think there was like a rally racing thing that you could do.
Yeah.
I just think there was a lot of room to grow, and I feel like with the push for video games, it can get a little tiresome if I'm honest. I love my stories in my video games, but it feels like every game's trying to tell this emotionally impactful story, but I feel like with the way the industry's trending, that Rage will try to do something a little more gritty or serious, or at least gripping, that I think it's a good series to give a chance out of anything they have. I'm surprised it's happening, but I am not going to argue it because I love Rage. At least, I wouldn't say, yeah, I love Rage. Rage's fun. But that'll do it for Rage 2, unless anyone has any additional thoughts.
I have one small little thing. One thing Bethesda's been doing when they've been tweeting all these weird tweets and pictures is they've been saying like their theme for this E3 seems to be breaking the boundaries, right? I almost wonder if that is what this spaceship is representative of, breaking the boundary. Like, people are breaking the boundary of what they thought was possible going into space, and then maybe the crosswalk. I know this is going to be some deep tinfoil hat speculation, but the crosswalk makes you think of like a boundary, right? This is where you are. This is where you cross. And it was kind of colored out with all the pink, like the boundary's gone. I don't know. I think I'm just speculating a little too deep.
Yeah, but it's there's clearly like some type of theme here. So I wouldn't say you're speculating too deep. I think Bethesda wants us to go there, or they're enticing us to go there at the very least. The other thing is that there was a Doom figure given out as a gift, and it was a pink one. So it seems like there's been this pink theme going on with Bethesda in general. But the difference is that before all the previous E3s, we knew the theme. Like, last year, it was all about being under the stars and star this, star that. And so, like, the presentation was that way. The invitation was that way. But when we received the invitation for 2018, it was just a standard E3 invitation. There wasn't anything specific about it, anything stand out about it. It was just that, you know. And if anything, it didn't show any pink. It was more like a nightlife kind of photo. So the pink seems to be like a recent thing, and if anything, I feel pink might have to do with some type of art style, something stylistic with the game. I'm not saying you're gonna be running around and like neon pink's gonna be following you, or it's gonna be fucking Splatoon. I'm just saying I feel like it's a sign of maybe like a graffiti, some type of grittiness,
right?
Something like that in Rage, if it ends up being Rage, which I think it's going to be. I feel like it's got to do something with the art, something with the style of the game. That's just me, though.
Yeah.
And now we move on over to the other side of the spectrum, from Rage to Starfield. So Starfield showed a sign of life this past week as well, went a little bit under the radar with all of the Bethesda teasing, but little did we know, it was already under the radar for about a month plus, as this was back April 4th that they had a third extension granted for the Starfield trademark. The last time that it actually showed any signs of life was September of last year. Now, we were talking tinfoil hat speculation earlier. This is, I think, tinfoil hat.
Here we go. Put on your hip waders.
Yeah, Pete Hines said, yeah, we started work on E3 in September of 2017 for this coming E3. I was like, fuck, that was the last time they extended the Starfield license. And then on top of that, there was an update for their store. So that connects to the trademarking that we were talking about that was updated for their store. Or rather, the trademark was for clothing. So it's all connected, and now we're seeing a sign of life just before E3. I have to wonder, you know, what's going on there. And with that said, some people might think that the clues have to be under our nose no matter what. Like, if Bethesda's doing anything, it has to be out there. But a friend of mine had actually shown me that Fallout Shelter's trademark wasn't registered until the day of E3 itself. So it was something that happened like during the show. They were like, boom. And it went right under everybody because it was too late for anyone to notice, and the game had already happened, so there were no secrets to hide. So with that said, trademark update for Starfield. Any thoughts on this?
Go ahead, Skulls.
That's like this trademark thing is so hard to fully decipher. Like Pete Hines says, we don't know what that is. We don't know who's working on it. We don't know what game it is. And then, like I mentioned, this giant monster news thing. Yeah, that's a weird name for a game. But then again, how often is the trademark name exactly whatever the thing is?
Yeah, I don't think Starfield's going to be the name of the actual game. In fact, it sounds a smidge cheesy. Like, if it actually was called Starfield, I wouldn't be upset, but I don't think Bethesda's going to call it Starfield.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it would be called. I'm not someone who's going to come up with a cooler sci-fi name, but that's just my take. Karak, what do you think about the Starfield extension, though?
I mean, I don't jump into the patent stuff much anymore because it's the majority is always wrong. Like, there's only a small minority that are going to be right about something or close. The rest of us are just going to do analysis videos. I don't know as much as you guys do about Fallout or Bethesda or anything like that. So I don't really jump into these. I also don't with companies I do follow, like Microsoft and stuff, because I've seen, I don't know if you guys remember, but PS4 had a patent for selling you McDonald's through their PS camera. So It's like, yeah, so you have no fucking clue what's real and what's not. I agree totally. We call it Starfield. Won't be called Starfield. It could be, but it would be weird. Most of the time it'll be, whether they call it like Galaxy Planes or whatever, and they slightly change it. All I know is what I want. And what I really want is I would love for the event to happen, them to show us whatever we expect. I'm sure they're not going to ignore Creator Club at E3 or anything like that. We'll see. You said that in your Discord. You're like, I don't think they're just going to magically pretend it doesn't exist. So we'll have those kind of things. I would love for it to be like Rage at an end trailer, like show something, but the main event be about Starfield. And that would, I would be so happy if that happened. Like if I don't want to get too excited about Bethesda's E3 in particular because they've never really held up for me. But Starfield is something that I absolutely would want. Mass Effect being one of my favorite series of all time. Mm-hmm. So,
major respect there. I love Mass Effect.
It's pretty much one of the things that got me into like some of the walking the walk videos I do. I just fucking want it so bad, and I think they're the company that could do it in a different way than Mass Effect with the more cluttered worlds that they do and the unique things that they have to offer. I don't know, man. It's the thing is it's like at some point I just stop even guessing because there's so much crap out there that it's hard for me to even sort of parse it and say this is what they said versus this is what some YouTuber said on a and when talking about it. So it's like I don't know. I just know what I want, which is Firefly and Fallout mixed together.
This trademark extension, I don't think there's much to go on yet because we've talked about the trademark quite a bit, other than just knowing it's still in existence. And I think Pete Hines' comments, if anything, offered more about that, but we already went in on that. So we can move on now to what I believe is a little bit more interesting, and that is going to be something that you discovered, Skullsy. Something that completely shocked the hell out of me. So why don't you go ahead and take that one away?
Okay, so this is something that I came across a few days ago. Even though it's obviously we're not going to see Elder Scrolls 6 for a long time, which is the official story, I still live in the land of hope and speculation, and I Google for that every day, and I found something. I had to translate this website. I'm not exactly certain what language it was in previously, but it's talking about a Canadian, and here we are back in Canada again, a Canadian toy and merchandise manufacturer that mentioned the Elder Scrolls 6 being in some type of early production stage, and they had a line of merchandise that they were going to announce or were supposed to start talking about in April, which was last month. It's now May, and we haven't heard anything about that. But it talks about that somebody, if you look into this further, there was a Discord conversation with this company, and someone saw the Elder Scrolls 6 mentioned as a future thing that they already had lined up, and they took screenshots of the conversation. And there is, I guess I have like the PowerPoint presentation screenshot here, but all it says is 2 little blue blocks. It says in development, and it says the Elder Scrolls 6, and then it gives some type of number. I don't know if that's a patent number. But yeah, this is it's always interesting when we get something Elder Scrolls 6 related. And again, it's something mysterious, and again, it's something in Canada. So I don't know what this really means, other than if this is true, it does confirm that Elder Scrolls 6 is alive back there behind all the Starfield speculation.
And out of all ways, through the toys.
Yeah, always the merchandise through Bethesda, right? If it's not clothing or something, it's something else, it seems. So it's hard to say. Like I say with any of these leaks, we have to approach it with the filter of like a prosecuting attorney and assume that the leak is false until it's proven true. I would love to see the Elder Scrolls 6, but I would also love to see Starfield. So yeah, it doesn't confirm anything, but it is interesting. And if it's true, it does confirm that the Elder Scrolls 6 is back there somewhere. What do you guys think about this?
See, the thing with Bethesda and Elder Scrolls 6 is they're usually, for example, I'll go back to that interview I used for Rage and The Evil Within and talking about a sequel, where they're like, do you think The Evil Within sold well enough to beat Hines to make a sequel? And they're like, absolutely. And then he goes, well, what about Rage? And Pete Hines goes, I think so. So I feel like we were talking about how the PR can kind of be messy, so that you either get a response or you don't, and then you think further because of that. But I feel like when they tell us something, that's the truth. I feel with Elder Scrolls 6, they were honest. They were like, we're going to do it, just not now. And I feel like since that was Todd's last appearance during E3 2016, when they were already showcasing something for Fallout 4, that why would they talk about Elder Scrolls 6 and start preparing the teases for then? I don't think they thought, like, okay, we're going to say this now so that in 2018, when people are speculating about this, they'll go back, dig up this interview, and see what we're saying. So I feel like with Elder Scrolls 6, they're being transparent that it's not in development, so I don't think it's real. But when I see on Reset Era, a leaker claim, and a guy who's an administrator on Reset Era nonetheless claim, there's going to be an announcement at Bethesda's showcase that's going to knock people out of their seats, it's like, that's the only thing I can think of, because no one thinks it's coming, myself included. I don't think Elder Scrolls 6 is coming, so that's the only thing. Like, if they did a trailer for that, I'd be like, what the fuck, are you serious? So that's my personal take on this bit of news.
Okay.
Eric?
I know what we're talking about with like posters, posting stuff on forums, so I'll keep my opinions to myself about that kind of stuff. But I think overall, the easiest way for me to describe it is whenever anybody says anything like it'll knock your socks off or you'll fall out of your seats, what they like and are excited about is in no way, shape, or form connected to what I do and what I may like. And so I don't know enough about any individual leaker. If they're a true leaker, which they aren't, if they're doing that, then it's hard to even know what they're even talking about. So it's like, it could be that would knock people, out of their seats, but to me it wouldn't, because it's Elder Scrolls. Of course they're working on one. So then you're talking to two different distinct groups. You, which you're taking it as a fan who understands and follows Bethesda, who understands they've said no. But then the random gamer, they don't know this shit. They have no clue what we're talking about. And so when Bethesda shows up, what would knock them on their ass? That's what's more important to me, is not necessarily me, because I'm a different kind of gamer. You are too. There's different people you may know or not know, or you may just pay more attention. I'm more interested in what would like knock people's socks off. To me, if Elder Scrolls came out, I think it might knock both of our socks off for different reasons. You, because you thought they weren't going to do it. But me, because I want Skyrim 2, as I keep calling it. Whatever you want to call it. So I really never follow the leakers that much, and especially when you get thousands of people a day posting some vague hint. And the vague hints could be that someone gave them a vague hint that said the exact same thing. I don't know. Like, I saw it posted, and I was like, whatever. I mean, I've been there hundreds of times where people have supposedly been in the know and been banned later, and because they didn't, and they I'm not saying that person did at all. I'm just saying I don't know what to trust on a forum of all places, right? Yeah. Like, because you're not putting your ass out like a video. If you put a video out, you may do some tinfoil, but you always are very careful because you don't want to get destroyed. Yeah. And it sounds like Skulls has got it as well, where you can get attacked if you're not, you're not sort of careful on those kind of things. But sometimes on a forum, people just blah, 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 blah. You're all, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't care what they say. I would care more about what you guys say, because I think overall you guys are Bethesda focused, so you may track these things a little better.
But I think you're totally on the right track. I think it's less of Elder Scrolls 6 because of what you said, where what would blow not just Bethesda fans, like they think of the gamer, right? It's not just like they'll think of their community, I imagine, but what would blow everyone away? And it's like it'd be something unexpected.
And that's that's why when you said Danganronpa, I was like, wait a minute, maybe. Like, what would blow people? What if we pretend that's a real tweet or post? I'm sorry, and it's gonna blow people away. Normally, it would have to be something of that level, right? Like, it would have to be something that was so gnarly that we all just sat there and went, "The fuck?" Like Final Fantasy remake, even though it's not being remade technically, but that's what interests me more, like is maybe the normal fans.
I feel like it would be something you'd never associate Bethesda with.
Exactly.
Like we see them reviving old franchises. They're all kind of grittier first-person shooters or something along those lines, and then all of a sudden they're making a superhero game. It's like, what?
And the pink reminded me of a game you like, and it's not owned by them, but it reminded me of Sunset Overdrive.
Yeah.
And the pink, my brain, and somebody said Splatoon, and my brain was like, what would throw people for what old IP maybe they found in somebody's fucking files? Did they grab? And it's great. Leisure Suit Larry. It's like something nobody expects. And you're like, what the fuck? That, to me, far more exciting than anything else is that kind of element when you think about it.
Yeah. As for the Toy Store thing, I mean, couldn't anyone just make a Toy Store slide and just say, like, hey, they did this? Like, how do you...
Exactly,
and have any proof or source?
It's from Reset Era, so if we go off what they say,
they're on a roll lately.
Yeah. One thing about the Reset Era thing, I'd love to believe it, but this brings me back to something in high school. I had a friend. There's a website called GTA Unleashed. Actually, this may have been before high school, but he was trolling the site saying he was a Rockstar developer and he had inside information about the next game, and he convinced them somehow that he had this information, and the whole website was backing these posts he was saying. So you got to remember, the websites want their shared publicity as well, and they may not necessarily be like knowingly faking this stuff, but they may be excited just as much as we are and saying, hey, not only do we have inside information, but it's only on our site, so this could not only get the community excited, but they're going to come to our site and we're going to be in the news and this and that. So they have a hand to play as well. At least when it comes to that kind of thing.
I don't know about you guys. Another thing I truly have noticed that has turned out to be true is occasionally you'll get a channel a website who will hold on to data until it's verified and then show it. Red Dead Redemption 2 in particular. There was a website that had held on to a lot of leaks that they got and waited until those first trailers came out. And we're like, well, it is right. Here's the information we got, not only to prove that what they said was correct about what you just saw in the trailer, but additionally what they also said. And I think that that's a really good way to handle things, to hold back until you have some way to say, okay, that's actually correct with what, this person emailed me or sent me or what have you. Then this other stuff has at least a higher chance of being correct. But what he was talking about with fake insiders, there's a lot of troll websites, by the way, that's a big deal to them. Like, it is very fun for them to make accounts. They're very good at it to make it look real, blurb stuff. It also doesn't mean we're not looking at astroturfers, where they're paid for PR by companies to drum up. And that's legit advertising. That's the new thing now. So we have no clue if that's it, too. Hey, guys, I heard this rumor. You're like, oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the Kotaku script leak for Fallout 4. It was like right after the Survivor 2299. I was like, I want to believe this, but I can't. Like, I wholeheartedly cannot after everything that happened. And I was like, I'll wait. And when Fallout 4 was revealed officially, first thing I did was I'm going back to those scripts and seeing what's there. And little did we know that they ended up being real. And not only that, it was the demo that they showed with the Minutemen and everything. Like the initial intro of Fallout 4. So
gotcha.
That's also helpful in a weird way. It's like it comes out early and then you go back later and check up on it. Like I guarantee if Starfield is real and it comes out this year. There was an old post on, was it 4chan? It was something that had like a Bethesda timeline. They were like Elder Scrolls 6, Greenheart or something like that, and like it had stuff dated all the way to like 2030, like a Bethesda timeline, including all these different games. And I guarantee if it's accurate once, give it some time, you know, people will play the next game on the timeline, and then they'll start speculating, and that will return. Always happens without
sure.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with these leaks or supposed leaks. You don't know if someone just put out like a timeline, and you can logically deduce to some extent what Bethesda's up to and make your own timeline and then post that and pretend you're someone else. And then if you're right, suddenly you look like, well, he was right, so he must know what's next too. It's like, is that actually the case, or was it just someone who had a lucky guess and then what happens afterwards?
It's also completely not the case, as you know, Matty. There's games that worked on right up until almost release and then get canceled. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know, what are you saying if you're talking 3 years prior? If you're talking about a Rockstar, there's a chance whatever you're seeing might be real, because they do work on games for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, if you're seeing something way early, you just be like, because the companies, a lot of times, they're in the preliminary phases of just random discussion, and the game will be nothing. You talk to any developer, and they'll tell you. They'll be like, the game was nothing like we had originally planned. Nothing. There's, huge swaths of difference. Look at Mass Effect Andromeda for the best example of that. Mm-hmm. That's a major company, and if you want to understand the differences of what it was going to be at the very starting to what came out, No Man's Sky, less positive of a discussion, but that also is the same way, where the length of time of a leak also changes just because. Also, you can say something that's untrue Monday, and Thursday they prove you right, and you can pretend and be like, yeah, I knew it all along. It's like, did you? Really? So it's awesome to follow. I mean, that's what's cool about gaming, and certainly Bethesda stuff, is that people are that excited about it, which is cool. There's some cynicism, but what I like about it is there's rarely the same kind of cynicism that exists around, let's say, a Mass Effect and a big company. Bethesda is considered a little bit more in the know with how people and what people are going to accept, like microtransactions, or well, Creator Club notwithstanding, and weird shit there.
I mean,
there's always a caveat.
It's always a caveat with Bethesda, because that's the strange thing is we have this company that Creation Club, they looked out of touch as fuck. You know, did they restart? Because this is more in-touch marketing. They're interacting with the community.
Yeah,
it's teasing images. It's getting you involved. It's pulling people in who didn't give a fuck about Rage until a week ago, because they just want to be in on that Bethesda excitement in the way that they're marketing it. So do you think maybe they saw what happened with Creation Club and they saw a chance to turn a corner here?
Sure.
Yeah.
In my opinion, as far as I'm concerned, I felt Bethesda was a very different company at that point in time. They were making greedy, just careless moves one after the other, and it was not the Bethesda I became a fan of. This is more like the Bethesda I became a fan of, like joking about rumors, the interviews with Pete Hines, teasing, and then these images. That community interaction is what's always made Bethesda better than, or more fun to watch and pay attention to than other companies, in my opinion. So
I agree.
Yeah, it's like, with that being said, do you think they're kind of trying to rebound here, Skullsy?
Oh, definitely. I definitely think so, and I think it kind of starts. I don't know exactly when they did this campaign, but the hashtag #SavePlayer1 campaign, they did that perfect timing when there's a lot of stuff going on about EA and a lot of stuff going on. I believe it was about Battlefront at the time.
Yeah.
So they're definitely have their finger on the pulse when it comes to not only what's hated in the gaming industry, but also what people are saying about them. So yeah, I agree with you completely that not only are they trying to turn things around with this E3, but they seem pretty confident that they're doing that, and I am super excited to see what they have in store for us.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're less than a month away. I think it's like 3 weeks now. Like, we're very, very, very close. It's getting real. So my question is, to kind of, I don't know if wrap this up or if we'll just keep going, but out of all games, why kickstart this with Rage 2? I mean, the only thing I can think of is you look at how much excitement it's building for some folks, and how much attention it's bringing to the show, and it's like they haven't even shown their ace card. So is that why they start with it, or?
I don't think they did. I do believe that they're reacting to Walmart. I mean, it would be really crazy for them to say, hey, Walmart Canada, fuck up your website so we can all do this thing together. It's possible, but that seems like a stretch even for Bethesda. But hey, you know, maybe he's just sitting back there going like, I got an idea. Let's fuck with everybody all over the world.
I'd believe it more if there wasn't like 10 other games leaked, because then they'd be jeopardizing other companies, and that'd be something else.
That's incredibly correct. Like for Forza Horizon, they would have to make sure with Microsoft it was okay to pretend that they were skipping a sequel. Like there's all kinds of crazy shit you get yourself in trouble for. But I think that they are probably more along the lines of responding with what's happened around them. They do watch what's going on with Creator Club. I don't think that's going away. I think that it's best for Bethesda fans to understand that they're a company as well, and and their job is to make money regardless of if they're buddy with anybody. So it's once you understand that, you can sort of see it makes sense for them to fix their PR a little bit because they have some oddities. And with Creator Club, man, that's pretty much when I started really coming on the channel. I think it was a little prior. I came on the channel a little prior to that, but I remember Lone and you and I was just like, it was just Creator Club. It's fucking Creator Club. So anybody watching the news is like, God damn. Like if you work at Bethesda, you're like, fuck, we need to switch shit now. Yeah. So I think it's a mixture of the two, but I would never consider this leak like indicative of their pattern. They're responding because of that leak. I don't think they started it or anything, and I think that they're just being smart about it and trying to be jokey too, trying to not be so serious.
Because Rage was never even a funny game. Like all these themes
just
go against what.
So that's
Rage is.
That's what I was going to bring up. The reason why I was saying all this was because of all the games that you really want people to be excited about. Not to be rude, I said this at the starting. Is it Rage? Really? Because it didn't come out to critical success or financial success until, as you said, when they asked him and he said, you know, has Rage sold enough for a sequel? And maybe. And you're like, that doesn't sound like you're hot to trot for that title either. Fans, I know you liked it. It sounds like I liked Elements. Sounds like Skulls likes it. But overall, not to be rude, that is one of the weaker titles they've ever released. And so it is weird, like, to have them be like, it's all about Rage now, and you're all, okay.
Yeah. I think what's going to happen is, I think there is a chance for excitement for renewal of the series and for people to get behind it, but the issue also arises that people are going to think this is the big announcement. It's not.
Right.
They're going to think it's way too early for it to be the big announcement. I know we said, it's 3 weeks away, but for E3 in general, that 3 weeks is early. I think that they're hiding what they really want to surprise us with, and they're probably thinking, all right, we've gauged interest with probably our weakest title on the list. That's a fucking job well done, you know? But the other thing that I think will work against this is people want a BGS title. So I think people will see Rage 2 and instantly be skewed because, well, this isn't Starfield, this isn't Fallout or whatever. The other thing I was thinking of when it comes to Rage is I don't want to fully rule out the idea that a new Fallout game can happen this year. I really don't, because it sold so well, and that's my only reasoning. I know I should have more than that, but I look at it and I go, God damn, like $25+ million, and you're trying to tell me they're just going to say, like we just talked about, they're a business. They like to make money. Why would you walk away from that? Something that outsold even Skyrim. You know, like we talk about, maybe not Skyrim now with resales, but
that's insane though.
But, you know, because Skyrim's been re-released enough times where maybe Skyrim still has it edged out. But Fallout 4 did so well, and I'd say it has room to even grow more because it is a first-person shooter. And, I mean, Bethesda's not afraid to take drastic steps with the franchise. I don't know what direction they'd go in. But I wouldn't rule it out. I really wouldn't. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it's very well possible that they do a similar thing to what they're doing maybe with Rage. You hand off the IP to someone else and then let the main company go to work on something else. Like, id could work on Doom. Rage could be by someone else. Fallout could be by someone else. Starfield could be by BGS.
Prey was Arcane, right?
Yes.
That would work. I would think that if they did do another Fallout thing, it would almost have to not be BGS. And this is based off, I'm not sure if it was Todd Howard or Pete Hines that said this, but when asked about Elder Scrolls 6, they said that we don't want to be a studio that just does Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Elder Scrolls. If BGS did another Fallout, that would almost invalidate that statement, as Fallout was their most recent game. So yeah, I wouldn't rule it. I agree with you completely. I wouldn't rule it past them to hand that off to maybe even what was it, Obsidian that did New Vegas?
Yes.
Maybe give them another go, with the new technology and the new creation engine.
I think
after that
also
Chris Avallone thing, I don't know if no one's going to work with
no one's going to Obsidian, but I do also think that unfortunately they've had a number of their smaller companies not do well with their single player sales wise. Prey did not sell well, nor did Dishonored 2. So Dishonored, from what I understand, the Death of a Salesman or whatever the fuck that secondary DLC was called, is that Death of a Walker. Outsider. Don't know where it came up with Death of a Salesman. That's a movie. So I think that did well, but overall that game didn't sell very well. And so I don't think that Death of a single player is bound to happen, but I think a Fallout is more like, for them, an easier thing to look at and assume they can build and have success with. Yeah, and the problem is overlapping of development companies across the years, because just because those two games didn't do well doesn't mean they're going to reverse and everything's going to be Fallout. But at the same time, if they have the chance to move focus and go, okay, you know what, these games didn't do well, let's get some money back by doing a good Fallout and then try again. And, so you have this tit for tat that can go across, especially in a company like that where they have all their different development houses. Because I don't think they're not Scrooge McDuck level of money like, let's say, Take-Two. Yeah. That just buys Cuba and fucking develops games there. I mean, those guys have got so much money, it's ridiculous. I think with Bethesda, they do have to worry a little bit. Didn't they have another single player that didn't sell well, Maddie? I thought there was like 3, because I'm pretty sure you guys actually reminded me.
Probably, I feel.
Evil Within 2 did not do well. Yeah.
Yeah. See, the thing though that might counter that, or rather not counter it, but might help them balance out, because they've said that the games have done. What interview was this? I can't quote it directly, so I apologize to those listening. But I remember Pete saying, because of their games with a service like ESO, games as a service, not with, ESO, Fallout Shelter, Quake Champions, and I want to say Elder Scrolls Legends, that those generate revenue on their own, where it allows them to take single player risks, and even if a game undersells, it's not really underselling, because I think they look at the profit as not just like this game sold this and this game sold this. They're like, how much did we as Bethesda Softworks make all together? I
have a question for you, Maddie.
Yeah.
Do they get the full revenue from ESO though? Because I thought ESO is actually
ZeniMax Online Studios.
Oh no, ZeniMax Online Studios.
Which
that's
the thing. Bethesda as a company,
they
if you're just
confuse
walking
me.
into it can be confusing, because you have ZeniMax at the top, you have ZeniMax Online Studios, so those two are kind of like a parallel, and it's the same thing with Bethesda and Bethesda Game Studios. So when I say Bethesda, some people are like, Bethesda Game Studios making Rage 2. It's like, no, Bethesda's publishing this. Then what the fuck's Bethesda? It's like, no, there's a difference. There's a complete.
They're a web for sure, and that does indicate you're absolutely right. That does push the fact that that maybe they do have the extra revenue to just say, couple failures be damned, or games that didn't do as well. I really would like to know. We'll never know how much like a Prey made in profit, because. Yeah. If you're making your money back, all you're doing is paying people for the past work they did. You're basically investing in future, and then your game releases, and you're paying backwards. You're like, okay, we need to pay all that back to whatever, the bank. And then you have your profit above that. I wish we could find that out, because I think if we could sort of figure out exactly, even a guess, because like, I don't know if you saw this, but Shadow of the Tomb Raider, they just announced their budget.
To 100 million, I think.
It's 100 million just for the game, and thankfully they did this. I hope all companies start doing this. 35 for advertising. They've separated them, and advertising being that the developer doesn't pay for it, the publisher will, and that can be spread around. So yeah, I wish we could know, because And then how did they sell later? I thought the Evil Within 2, I could be incorrect, Maddie, but I thought the Evil Within 2 had a resurgence later. It got the patch for
had
first
really
person.
good patches that might have brought more people in. I can look it up while you finish.
Because I think you and I were the ones, because I wasn't in love with that game. Nope. And I think overall it's got a bunch of patches, so maybe that saw an increase. I think what's it called again? The sequel. Death of an Outsider might have helped. I wish we knew how much though, because how many failures?
I'm looking up Evil Within 2. It's got 4.5 stars out of 2,145 reviews, and like people really like this. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was only in the first like month that it was doing poorly, and reviews were poor, and then after that it sort of ballooned up, which is good.
It's also kind of a niche market too, the horror survival game.
Very much so, yeah. And third person only at that time, remember? Because they patched the first person, which, by the way, you get a chance to play Evil Within 2, play it now, because the first person changes that game. I'm stunned that when they released that, they did not have the first person patch in, because it makes it a great deal better.
Oh, wow.
All right, so I'm just going off a forum, but it can give us a discussion point.
Sure.
Sales data on the game is scarce, but some numbers are available. The Evil Within 1 sold around 800,000 units in its opening week, which is pretty decent. These sales can be attributed to the marketing, the revival of the horror genre at the time, and the big name of Mikami on it. The Evil Within 2 sold around 200,000 units in its opening week, around a quarter of the original. This can be attributed to the original weak critical reception, bad marketing, which I agree with because they didn't market that game for shit. And last minute reveal, the game was revealed around a few months before release. Add that to the removal of Mikami as director, and you have pretty much reduced sales amount. So, yeah, we have opening week sales. I'm gonna keep looking in the meantime, but yeah, it doesn't look like I can't imagine this game performed well. Yeah, I see a report here from Eurogamer, the Evil Within 2 physical launch sales quarter of original.
Oh, wow. I almost wonder if the resurgence happened. You mentioned that it had bad marketing, which I agree. I wonder if the game wasn't inherently bad, so all the YouTubers and Let's Players and Twitch streamers playing the game maybe brought it more attention than the marketing itself did.
That's the thing, is with horror games, the Resident Evil, while it sold really well for most gamer standards, for Capcom it didn't. And I think a big part of that is because people see horror and they go, I don't want to play that, I'm too scared, so they watch someone play it, or one person will buy it and 5 will sit in a room together and play it. It's like that could be 5 individual sales, or everyone's too afraid, so they gather up, and so for like every 5 copies you could sell, you're only selling like 1.
Or the fact that Capcom hired fucking theater majors for their math department. Because when they said, remember, they were like, Resident Evil 7 should sell like, I don't know, remember, 200 billion copies, whatever the fuck they said. Yeah. But when they announced it, everybody was like, what? It's an amazing game, but what are you even talking? Like, you're not even in our world. And we couldn't figure out if it was like, did they spend that much money to get it VR capable? Because that is possible. That a chunk of it was the development, because that's one of the best VR games ever made. It works in VR as well as normal, which is very rare. Yeah. So maybe that was the development cost. You do have to have a second hub for your testing, your QA, but. Yeah, that's funny, Maddie, that you bring up Capcom, man, because I still remember we were like, what the fuck? Who would have ever thought that? I think now, I don't know if you saw, but same thing happened. We talked about this, the Rise of the Tomb Raider, where originally the CEO wanted it to save the company, so they said it sold poorly, and now they're like, well, it's actually sold more than enough. It's just our expectations were completely wrong. Like, so maybe with Capcom, it's the same way.
A lot of people deem the series kind of as a failure, like, you wanted to revive it. I think we talked about it on the show, like how we want it to be this big thing, and it might not be that big thing, but turns out it could be just the expectations are being projected out onto the consumer now.
I think so, man. And I think not to be rude, but I think we can be a part of that. It's sort of like what Skulls alluded to. YouTubers, like, how do you cover things? I've seen some videos where somebody will say this game is dead and the game is out for like a week, and that can be true. But look at Ubisoft. I would love to see the people who are like, man, Siege is dead, and it's like, bitch, Siege isn't not only dead, it just kicked your mom's ass. Like, it depends on the company, depends on their support as a service. You and I both weren't in love with Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is doing really well for Microsoft as a service. and getting better and getting more content.
Mm-hmm.
It needs it for sure. It had none on release, so
yeah, I was disappointed.
Oh, dude, I don't even know I don't know how that game got released. I'm totally confused.
It was
What
like
else are
one
you
of
looking
those.
at? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it reminded me of like one of those Steam early release games that had no business being early release necessarily.
Where all they do is have you craft a spear, and they call it a survival game. They'll be like, go to this island, fucking, cut down a hemlock, and you're like, dude, that's all there is in this game. In Sea of Thieves, I remember about 3 hours in, just going, isn't a lot really changing as I level up or anything like that. It was. I like the fact that it's social. People get a kick out of that. What were you looking at, Matty?
I'm just out of curiosity after looking up The Evil Within 2. I was like, how well did Wolfenstein sell?
Yeah.
And that doesn't look too hot either.
It did. Wow. Wolfenstein 2 did not do well.
It did not. It's looking like... I mean, I could tell right away because the game was heavily discounted. Like I remember when I got my review out for it, it was like a week and a half or so after the game launched, 2 weeks maybe. And... it might have been longer than that, but it was at like $40 at that point. And it's like that's never happened with me. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. Late too for my review, my God of War review, and that's still $60.
Wolfenstein 2 amazed me also because I think, if I remember right, it was a Tuesday review time, just typical. And I'm pretty sure by the next Tuesday, when people were getting like paychecks, they were saying, because I think I rated that one a wait for a sale. No, I rated that one a buy, I think. And people were like, well, it's on sale for like $31 instead of the $59.99 I reviewed it at. Should I get it? And I'm like, Jesus, that's already, not half off, but quite close to half off a week later. Its sales out of the box didn't do well, and I'm not 100% sure why, because that game, I really enjoyed that game.
They marketed it too.
I know there's been some issues with the storytelling over time. I still have yet to look into that yet, but... I said twice, Jesus Christmas. But that's something that I want to investigate. But as for the gameplay, I mean, it was so satisfying, like using the axe and you just chop off someone's leg for a stealth kill. It was so over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't put it up with Doom, obviously, because I think Doom is something that is just really very unique in its success. But Wolfenstein 2, man, there was a lot of good moments in that game. So... I think sales on that one were probably hurt. There was, when it first came out, I thought critically it was actually doing pretty well. But I think it released against a couple games, if I remember right. I could be wrong, but I thought it released at least, and you get that. Look at Titanfall 2. It's like, I mean, sometimes these guys just release in really bad time frames.
That's true.
And that might be it. Might not be critical at all.
It's crazy to think that can kill some series just because of the timing, really. I mean, it happens.
Titanfall 2 got... Man, that was a good single player.
It was.
Impressive multiplayer. I had some issues with it, but overall, there's no reason it did the way it did, and that except for one of the worst review did you guys ever see the video where they ask the guy, like, why did you release it at this time? And the publisher dude's like, blah, 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 blah. And the developer looks over at him and goes, whatever the fuck that means. And you're like,
oh, damn.
Why do mom and dad fight?
I need an adult.
Yes, that sounds
there was
eerily
some
similar.
Anger. That was some anger that was going on there.
Dang. Huh.
That doesn't surprise me, though.
Me neither.
They literally set them up to get slaughtered. Sent them to the slaughterhouse.
They did. It's something that I wish we could find out. I mean, there was even reports that it was like, oh, they did it on purpose so that their, Star Wars would be the #1 seller for them, and they had no competition with Titanfall and all this stuff. And I was like, I think it was I think it was dumb, just dumb, a lack of knowledge of what you were doing.
I agree. I think they got too wrapped up in one marketing campaign and forgot about the other.
Well, look at Andromeda. To this day, when I play Andromeda, I cannot understand how that ever got released.
It killed Andromeda as a bane of my existence because my previous YouTube channel was all about Mass Effect. All about it.
Oh, really?
All about Yes, I love Mass Effect. I love it. I have all my old videos on my channel, but Andromeda, not only did it kill the series, it killed the community. I mean...
It's very much like Destiny 2 from what I've observed.
Yeah, and I still think back, like Mass Effect was that magical thing, but like anything else, you just have the right collection of developers, the right situations happen. I don't think we can have that magic back with Mass Effect.
Or with BioWare.
Or BioWare, yeah.
We'll have to
Is
do
Anthem still coming out this year?
Anthem is
Is
no,
it?
it'll
Oh,
be
that got
delayed.
delayed, right?
I would love for us to have a discussion at some point about the real need, ignoring the microtransactions, ignoring the dev crunch for a second, but the real need for somebody to watch a developer and make sure that they're tight in their timelines and stuff. Because a lot of people you talk to, when those teams like a BioWare gets big, Microsoft was very like, you will do this at this time, and you have to report, you need to deliver to us a demo that works at this point, and we'll pay you this much money for that. That's pretty typical in like dev communities. But it seems like with Activision, they were just like, here's 10 million, whatever they paid for Bungie. And it's like, here's all the money, and Destiny just fell apart because of that. Like they didn't have any pressure sort of, making a diamond. It was just carbon and shit. And I, by the way, I like Destiny 1 and 2. Not so much anymore, but I didn't hate them. And it was just a very odd development how it all worked out.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, I was thinking, but I have nothing to add.
It's cool to see somebody had a Mass Effect channel, though.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved Mass Effect,
I
and
knew a couple of Mass Effect YouTubers before Andromeda. God, it sounds like a horrible disease that broke out before the Andromeda.
I did a review, and I still to this day don't know how this ever got in a game, but I remember playing the game, and you walk around a corner, and there's somebody at a table, and it dawns on you that everybody is physically the wrong size. When a guy is typing on a table, and he's like got this weird hunchback, and in my review I said something like OSHA unapproved table, because it looked like something you'd never seen before. And then you'd talk to a character, and the humans were like dwarfish almost, like everybody looked the wrong size, and you're just sitting there going, how did this get out? And when you first start like talking to different characters, you see them, and my brain when we were playing that, Maddie, it was that depressive moment where you're like, wait, this is Mass Effect. Because to me, Mass Effect's used to be top tier. And so it was like everything I was experiencing, it was just like somebody coming in and being like, your parents hated you as a child, they fucking never wanted you, and you're like, oh my god, it just keeps getting worse. Truth button.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is they were so hell-bent on trying to use the new engine. I mean, for years they built on, what engine did they use? It wasn't, they switched to the Frostbite engine, I believe.
They switched to Frostbite from Aurora, I think, or something, whatever it was called.
And they had no experience with Frostbite, and that's why the animations were so horrible, and man, there's just so much wrong with that game. And then, of course, you have EA looming over him with their stick, poking him, hurry up, we need more money from you, BioWare, hurry up. And it just led to disaster and depression.
I don't even know if it hurt them to have EA. I mean, what I mean is, if they did those switches, well, Frostbite hurt them, obviously, and that's their engine. But I mean, I don't even know if, like, even if they'd given them a year, do we really feel that Andromeda would have been some classic? Because I don't.
No, I don't either. I agree. They would have had to scrap it.
The start was just doomed to fail.
Yeah, it's weird. By the way, people might think I'm fidgeting. I've got dogs at my feet. I apologize. They keep chewing my... One's got the microphone, and he's like chewing on the cord. I'm like, dude, right in the middle of the podcast. Seriously? Sorry about that.
I've been besieged by my cat trying to meow into the microphone.
I keep like trying to go down, and then it dawned on me. I'm like, somebody thinks I'm doing intravenous drugs right now. Like, there's no way they're not seeing me go and going like, what is
jet?
What is Karak's problem? A jet? Holy shit, that's a nerdy joke. I love it.
I have my door shut so my dog doesn't come in here. Because, like, for me, he's just a whiner. So I love him, but he'll come in and he'll be like, okay, I'll pet him. He'll be like, all right, I'm all right now. It's like, dude, I have peanut butter and I have dog bones because they come in and they whine and I have to like, you'll see me go, I'm not like touching myself. I'm actually putting a little peanut butter on a bone to shut him up for like, because I have the same thing. I have a whiner. He'll just all day long, no matter what you're doing. He's just never happy. And the only time he is happy is when he's dead asleep on the couch.
Attention. Or asleep. Yeah, attention.
Like,
or
life
asleep.
is great, man. But that wraps up all the news we had for this week. It was a really good discussion. Lots of Bethesda. Lots to speculate about, and I'm sure when we come back next week, it'll be a whole new ball game. So, Skullsy, if you'd like to pimp anything, promote anything, by all means, now is your chance.
Yeah, if you guys want to check out some of my content, I talk about Bethesda news, Elder Scrolls, Starfield, whatever they're doing. I'm starting to branch off to maybe covering some other games like Cyberpunk, but I'll always be Bethesda-centric. And I also recently started doing Twitch as well. My YouTube is youtube.com/Skullsy, and my Twitch is Skullsy_TV. And thank you very much for having me. This has been a blast, and it's awesome to finally be part of the podcast after watching you guys for so long. It's been fun.
Well, thank you for supporting it for so long, first of all, and thank you for joining. We really appreciate all the positive contributions you brought and the feedback you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And that'll do it for episode 156. Karak, any final words?
No.
All right.
No, I can't think of any. I'm excited for what we're going to talk about next. Next Friday.
Like when this goes live for most folks, this is the day before. This is the calm before the storm, and then it's a whole new ball game.
It's going to be very interesting if I have to show up with an apology sign around my neck and be like, "I'm sorry for ever doubting," or if I don't know. I have a feeling this entire next week is going to be one of those times where I'm looking at Twitter, just going, Somebody's gonna DM me or tweet me and be like, "Ha, I told you," or "You were right." I can't wait. E3, that's the way it is.
Yeah,
Less than a month.
This 2 weeks hashtag will be apology sign. And,
yeah, exactly.
So if you got to this point in the podcast and you want to share it, we have all the handles on screen for you to tweet at. Use the hashtag apology sign, and we will catch you guys next week. Peace out.
Bye.